Hello YouTube, this is Rassan for Mavwa, Canadian Immigration Made Easy, and in this video I'm going to share with you my methodology to increase your chances of getting the PR visa for your spouse or partner through the family class under service and information. So here you have all the different cases of family class, but what I want to bring your attention on is what will determine whether or not your visa will get delivered. You need to find out first if you have real chances of getting your visa because it's a long process. We're talking about over 100 pages of forms and supporting document, so it's better to be sure from the beginning of one's chances. So for that, we're going to open the document here. It's a document checklist. That's the IMM 5533. You can download it in the description. So here we're talking about a Canadian citizen or permanent resident who wants to sponsor their spouse with or without their children to come live with him and reunite in Canada. The most important factor is the proof of relationship to sponsor. Your job when you're assessing your chances of getting a PR visa under the family class is to convince the immigration officer that your relationship is legitimate, it's genuine, and you're not doing it just for the Canadian papers. And for that, your application can fall into three tiers. Tier number one is if you can answer yes to all these questions here. So you and your spouse or common law partner are living together. You can prove it by giving two of the proofs below. You do have children. It is your first marriage and you have been married for a minimum of 2 years. If that's the case, it's pretty straightforward. We're talking about 6 to 8 month processing time, and your tier one means you have very high chances of obtaining the PR visa for your spouse or common law partner. This is great. But unfortunately, very few people fall into that category. Tier number two is when you live together with your spouse or partner, but you can't prove it as per CIC's requirements. So you click yes here, but you're unable to give two proofs as required here. So in this case, you will need to enter the narrative and to describe why you're not able to provide the required proof. Once you do that, you gotta answer all these questions and be specifically careful in this part. This is the most important part of the application because you have to justify, you have to make a claim to the immigration officer that your relationship is legit, and you do that by answering this part here. So you have to provide photos of your wedding, celebration, etc. But we're going to get to that in a second. I just want to finish on the tier 2 and tier 3. Tier 3 is the most delicate applications to defend because the spouse or partners do not live in the same household. And you need to provide a convincing explanation why that is the case. It could be, for example, that you come from different religions, and in the country that you live in, it's forbidden to marry someone from another religion, or maybe your wife or partner is persecuted in their countries and it's a gray area. So the more proof you can bring, the best your application will be. And this is how I do it with my client. This is based on my courses when I was studying immigration law, and it has always worked. So when you prove the relationship, you need to prove it under three grounds. The first one is the financial proof. Basically, any amount of money that you spend to maintain or grow the relationship. If you have any proof of money transfer, you transferred money to your husband or your wife, keep the receipt because you're going to need them. Anything that shows that you have actually invested money. It could also be plane tickets, it could be hotel reservation, it could be trips that you have done together. Whatever the case, it has to be a financial proof. That's ground number one, and that's the most important. The second one is the social proof. Here it's about people that you both know, could be friends, could be family members, could be colleagues, whatever the case, but they must be able to testify in case they are asked. So the best way to do it here is to show pictures of people with their name and their contact information in case CIC wants to reach out to them. And then the last one is the conjugal proof. Here you have to show pictures of your conversation, intimate conversation, anything that is a conjugal proof that you guys are together. This is where it falls. So if you hit these three marks, financial, social, and conjugal proof, you're on the right track to get your PR visa. And this is the best way I found in my experience to do it, is to build a narrative that has 20 events, 20 because you're only limited to 20 pictures in the application, and rank those events by date, the name of the event, the picture if you have it, or the witness that was present at the event, and the proof. It could be financial, social, or conjugal, but rank it so you make sure by the end of this exercise you have balance within your proof of one third, one third, one third. All right. And the last thing you have to do is to prepare a list of witnesses. This is where we talk about social proof, but it's just another level of social proof because for all my clients, I tell them to bring 3 witnesses for the sponsor and they have to provide the ID, official ID, either national ID or passport, and contact information, phone number or email address. 3 people for the sponsors and 3 people for the sponsored person to have as witness just in case CIC needs to call them. Most of the time, CIC will not do that, but in case they do, you want to give them the opportunity to do it directly without having to call you before because that will waste you a couple of months of back and forth communication in your application. To sum up what we said, the most important thing in a family sponsorship application for spouse or conjugal partner is to have the proof of relationship. So even before you start, you got to make sure that your proof of relationship to your sponsor is solid. And for that, you can fall into 3 tiers. Tier number 1 is if you live with your sponsor or your spouse and you can prove it. This is great. Tier number 2 is if you live with your sponsor but you cannot prove it due to whatever reason, then you have to build a narrative explaining why you cannot prove it. And tier number 3 is when you don't live together and you have to explain why you cannot live together at the moment, whether it is in Canada or in your spouse country, in your spouse's country. Family class are among the most difficult applications because they require a lot of proofs that are completely subjective to the immigration officer. So do it properly, take your time, and it will be well worth it. That's it for this video. I hope you found the information useful. Like if you liked the video, subscribe if you want to know more, and I'll talk to you very soon. Goodbye.